Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, 5 Steps to Skyrocket Your MSP Sales. I'm Amber Noble, a marketing specialist at Barracuda MSP, and I'm happy to be moderating today's session. Today, I'm joined by Brad Stoller, National Director of Business Development at the PT Services Group. With an abundance of experience, he's dedicated to helping businesses beef up their sales processes in order to drive profitable growth. During today's educational webinar, Brad will review common sales issues on the rise, as well as some creative ways to inexpensively boost your sales funnel. Before we get started, some brief housekeeping. During the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to share them using the questions or chat panel to the right of the Zoom webinar screen. Throughout and at the conclusion of the webinar, there may be surveys. If you could please take a moment to engage with us and let us know what you think so we can continually improve the content and quality of our online events, that would be excellent. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Brad to begin today's presentation. Hopefully he'll stumble a little less than I. Go ahead and take it away, Brad.
Well, I'm already stumbling just a little bit because I'm laughing here, but Amber, as always, I really appreciate the invitation to speak here today, and it's become a real passion of mine to help MSPs with their sales processes and just to help. I can't really say anything more than that. I just enjoy helping, and I take the attitude, help as many as you can, and whatever happens, happens. So I hope you guys will all, feel you've gotten a lot out of today, and by all means, feel free to give me a ring or a shout, email, text, whatever you need to do. Just if you have a question, I'm always happy to help, and I'm not going to try and sell you or anything like that. It's just we just like to help. So that said, here's what I look like. That's me on the, I guess I'm the only one on there, so that's who I am. But as Amber said, I'm the National Director of Business Development at the PT Services Group, which means absolutely nothing other than the fact that just like you guys, I'm always trying to build our business up as well. And I've done a lot of experimenting, trial and error. You name it, I've tried it. I haven't tried it yet. I'm looking for something else to try out all the time. So a lot of this webinar is a culmination of things that I've learned from really, really good MSP operators out there. I've learned a lot from some of the peer group leaders that are out there. You name it, I learned from everybody. So it's been a lot of fun. So 5 ways to skyrocket your MSP sales. I'm just going to warn you. The full disclosure, some of you, this is going to be a real eye-opener for some of you. Some of you are going to say, yeah, I've done that before. Okay, and if nothing else, we'll get a few, maybe some thought-provoking ideas to come out as well. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm not going to be bashful. And if you feel that, hey, this doesn't work, well, okay, well, hang on a second, listen a little bit more, and because a lot of this stuff really does come from really top successful MSPs, other sales organizations, you name it. I have a lot of Salesforce.com theory in here, so there's a lot of good stuff in here. So, and while we're going through, there's a lot of content today, but as Amber said, if you have some questions, make sure you put it in the questions, and Amber, if you could just alert me, and we'll try and get those questions asked or answered as quickly as we can. So here's what we're going to cover today. So how to focus on maximizing your MRR with the right clients. We're going to be talking a little bit about cleaning up your current client base, turning lead generation into a predictable sales machine. And we're going to talk about the pipeline. And what is a pipeline really? There's more to it than what a lot of people are aware of. We're going to talk a little bit about your sales team. What is some things that you can do to really, really boost their productivity, which means your bottom line. And last is you're leveraging your resources. When should you consider outsourcing to boost the sales process? And I'm also going to go over when I don't think you should. So we're going to have a little fun. So why should you care about a sales process? Let's face it. Okay, you've been growing, right? You've had referrals, you've had word of mouth. Business has grown over the past just fine, right? So why on earth would we want to have to talk about this? Well, in one word, yeah, it's competition. It's getting a little tougher out there. You know, it wasn't that long ago that 10 years ago, an MSP, people didn't know what MSP meant, first of all. But all they know is they had these computers. They knew they needed to network them. They knew something about maybe some, I don't know, maybe some safety issues, but they really weren't up on it. But today it's a little different. So we're going to dive into number one, and that is how to maximize your MRR with the right clients. And I emphasize the word right on this. So what we're going to work on is how do we attract more of our A prospects, which I guess we probably ought to figure out how we can tell who our A prospects are. And then also, yeah, this is where it gets a little thought-provoking, challenging. We're going to talk about firing your current D clients, and I do mean fire them. So starting with your current clients, so what about your best customers? You know, who are they? Yeah, so we're going to talk just a little about, you know, some demographics, is what we call psychographics, or how they think, their behaviors, and, you know, what are their issues that you solve? And then what we're going to do is we're going to work on, well, okay, we're not going to do this today because we don't have the time, but I'd like you to get some thoughts on this. I've got a guide that I actually wrote. You're welcome to have it. I'll give it to you. But I'd like you to grade your current customers. You know, list the key characteristics about all of your clients. I do mean all of them. This could take a little bit of time and some help from your staff. It's not just you, but get your staff involved with this as well. Things such as how easy are they to work with? You know, how much do you and your staff enjoy working with them? You know, how much profit are they generating for you? And how often do they buy or upgrade services? You know, are you getting referrals from them? If not, you know, well, they're not an A client. How quickly do they pay their invoices? Okay, so these are all important things that you need to know about every client you have, so you can put that grade on them. And when you get done, you'll have something that looks kind of like this. You know, just a simple chart, and at the very bottom, you'll see where it says an overall grade. So pretty basic stuff, right? It's so basic that a lot of people don't ever think about it or even do it. So there's my challenge. Challenge number one. So again, I'm going to say do this for all your customers so that they all have a grade. Again, this could take a little bit of time. I get it. But get your staff involved with this. Choose the A respondents. Just take a look at it for a little bit. Once you find those A respondents, go a little deeper. You know, look for their characteristics. And the goal here is develop an ideal client profile. And what you're trying to do, again, your most desired customers, what are their characteristics? Well, let's talk about the demographics for just a second. You know, what industries are they in? I think once you start doing this, some things are going to start to open your eyes with, and you're going to start to see some trends. You know, how many end users do they have? You know, you might have been thinking, you know, we want, you know, 15 to 25 users, and then you find out, well, your best clients are 75 and 100, or vice versa. You think they're 75, 100, they're really the most profitable ones are the ones who are 35. You know, so you'll get to kind of see that once you dive in, and your staff is involved with this as well. You know, are they a single location, or do they have multiple locations? Where are their locations? There's no right or wrong answers in this, but you just have to dive in and find out. You know, how many total employees do they have, and do they currently have IT employees? And the goal is, what do your best customers look like? And those are going to be all those A's that you put out. You know, what do they look like? The next part is the psychographics, and that's the attitudes, the aspirations, their goals. How do they think? So why do they buy from you, and what motivates them? You know, so what's their attitudes towards technology? Again, their goals, desires. You know, how do they spend their money? I don't mean with you, but I just mean overall. You know, how do they spend their money? What's their worries and fears? And the whole idea behind this is to get an understanding of how do your best customers think. And if you can climb inside their heads a little bit, it's really going to help you when you get to the next few stages, and that's when you start looking for more clients. So next part is the behaviors, and again, actions they take in relations to your services. You know, how do they make decisions on what to buy, when to buy, how to buy? So you're going to be talking a little bit about or understanding their buying processes. Do they just Is it a one meeting and yes, let's come aboard? Or does it take them some time? And think about that a little bit. So why do they continue to buy from you? This is something where sometimes you just have to flat out take your best clients to lunch. Ask them these questions. You know, hey, John, you've been with us for 10 years. Everything's going great with you guys. Why are you with us? Why do you continue to be with us? And listen to them. You know, how did they gather information before they bought from you? Ask them these questions at lunch. You know, how are they affected by price, quality, value? What's the most important thing to them? And what was the trigger that brought them aboard with you in the first place, if they can remember back that far, which they probably will. But again, you want to get an idea of how they act. And all this, again, is very, very important once you start looking for more clients, or once. Hopefully you're looking for clients now, but hopefully we're going to modify your behavior a little bit so you get better ones. Last part of this, you know, what are their issues? You know, what are the problems that you're currently solving, you know, with your clients, and find out why your clients really need you. Again, these are all questions that these lunches and dinners are going to be kind of important to you if you really want to dive in deep. You know, what's the cost that they, you know, if they don't do business with you, or if they don't use IT help at all, what would the cost of their businesses be? If they have a few people in-house that are working on IT, you know, are they experienced? Are they inexperienced? You know, other issues that you feel your clients face every day. And again, the goal is to find out what are your customers, your best customers' issues. And again, we went over, oh my gosh, we went over a ton of information. Normally you could break this into 2 or 3 sessions on this, what we covered alone. Okay, so understand we are going through this extremely fast. But like I said, the goal is to develop your ideal customer profile. What I did is I looked all over to try and find something with the MSP industry on target client profiles. I looked and looked, and I'm sure there's something there. I just couldn't find it, so I wrote my own. This is based upon everything that I've learned from MSPs all over the country, I guess international now. We're talking to some other than U.S. as well. Peer group coaches, you name it. They put it all together for me. But if you would like a copy of that, just shoot me an email, and I'd be more than happy to send it to you. I hope that it'll make things a lot easier for you going forward. Here's just a sample of you know, what it might look like when you're done. The sheet, though, tells how to go about getting all these things. But so this is what you're really shooting for, is that profile. So now that you have the profile, what are you going to do with it, right? So developing qualifying questions for future clients is really, really critical going forward. You got to use that newfound, your A customer characteristics. You got to start working on formulating some questions that your staff, whether you do it internally or outsource it, whoever is making those first connections with your prospects, you need to make sure you can ask them these questions while they're qualifying and hopefully setting appointments with them. So, you know, these are stuff like, you know, the number of end users, you know, to do your best to get in the range of your best clients. You really want to work on getting 5 to 6 good key questions. And I know at the PT services group, that's one of the things we really key in on, and we don't let our clients off the hook when they first come on board. We take a couple of weeks to understand this so we can help, you know, get those questions. And it's very, very critical. So the second thing we're going to want to do is, now that we understand and we've graded our clients, our current clients, well, you're going to have a few that, like this guy screaming down here, we don't really like to work with. So how much does a bad client cost you? Well, that's a good question. Again, this is going to be one of the things where I start shocking some people here. But we will need to get rid of those guys. So you've heard about probably the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. You know, I didn't make it up. It's been around for who knows how long, a long, long time. And the way it works, 80% of your profit It's going to come from 20% of your clients. So those are your A's and B's. C client, you never know. Those are good ones to keep around because maybe they have the potential to become a B, or the B has the potential to become that A. Okay, but also with this, 80% of your problems come from 20% of your clients, and guess which ones those are? Okay, it's not your A, B, or C's. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to fire. Yes, I mean, you're fired. Your worst, time-sucking, profit-taking, the ones who are abusive to your staff. Are they just so demanding? And we need to do it now. Okay, so when I say now, okay, well, hang on a second. I don't mean call them up right now and say, hey, you're fired. Okay, maybe that's not the best way to do it. You do need to bow out gracefully with those problem clients. And here's some things that I've found that, you know, some of the more successful MSPs that I've talked with, again, not, does anyone do every single one of these? Probably not, but put them all together, this is kind of what it looks like. First of all, you know, if they're calling you all the time and you're running your support tickets way out of the up, and just, you're not making any money on them. In fact, you may even be losing money. So you got to contain the damage. You got to let them know the boundaries of your agreement. So if you're doing a $2,000 a month MRR, but they're costing you, you know, $2,500 or $3,000 a month because they're making so many calls, you've got to be able to put boundaries on that agreement. So, you know, Mr. Customer, we'll cover you, but, you know, anything above, you know, 10 calls in a month, you know, we're going to have to start charging you some time. You got to put those boundaries on that agreement. And go over the charges with them again, that above and beyond. Once you do this, they may just decide that, well, this isn't right, and they may buy out or bow out on their own. Hey, mission accomplished. But you did it in a professional manner. The second thing that I've noticed the most do is they give lots of notice. So let them know that you're no longer able to provide the type of service that they desire. You know, give them as much notice as you can so they can go and find another vendor. Moving on, there's a couple more things that you can keep in mind, but, you know, refer them. I know our own MSP that we use. I know that, okay, he didn't fire us. I like to think we're one of his better clients. But I do know that when they found clients or prospects that didn't fit, and clients, they had some other MSPs that maybe they're just starting out and they needed business. They'd take anybody they could get just because they needed the business to get going. Well, okay, so let them know of another MSP that, you know, maybe you can help them out, you know, by referring another MSP to them. And by all means, make sure you communicate that with that other MSPs, you know, what your issues were, just so they know what they've, you know, what they're up against or what they're into, I guess. Make sure you keep it professional. You know, Mr. Jones, look, I'm sorry to say we're not going to be able to work in your account any longer. We're just booked over capacity. And part of that capacity is because he's calling, you know, 5 times every day because of these little nitpicky problems that really, if they just listened to you in the first place, they wouldn't be problems. You know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about. The last thing, if nothing else works, announce a massive price hike, not across the board, just for your D-class clients. Usually, this is going to do the trick. But I got to tell you, I've heard the stories, though. You have to be prepared because they may still choose to stay. They can't find anybody else that'll take them either. But if you have the massive price hike and they do stay, well, you know what? At least you'll be profitable. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. I hope I didn't shock too many of you when I say fire your clients. But if you're spending all your time on those you're not making any money with, the real cost is the opportunity of what you're missing out on because you can't bring in more of the A and Bs that you really would like to have and who are profitable, and you don't have to work as hard. So that's the real crime in all of it. So the third thing, what we're going to do is turning the lead generation into a predictable sales machine. And this is where we're going to start talking about the pipeline. And you've all heard the pipeline, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper. And again, my goal is to challenge each and every one of you so that you know, you leave here today thinking, you know, I never quite thought of it quite like that before. And if you guys leave with that, then I know I've done a good job today. So what's that pipeline? What is it really, right? Well, this is part of, okay, this is the system that I've noticed when I was studying Salesforce.com. I know Salesforce is an MSP, but everybody's heard of Salesforce, right? You know, the CRM giant. Well, they started out with nobody wanting to talk to them either. Well, the first thing in their sales funnel is creating awareness. So that's such things such as going out in the community, getting involved with some things. One of our clients, I know he's heavily involved with Mardi Gras down in New Orleans, and I know Daryl, he's very, very involved in committees. And man, I got to tell you, that really helps us set appointments for him because the key people in the community, and New Orleans is not exactly a small community, but a lot of people at least have heard of Daryl down there, and it really does help create awareness. But just a real quick overview, you get some people, inquiries of the inbound calls that you get. If you do some marketing, AdWords, that kind of thing. Prospects are different than leads. Prospects are just simply, if we come up with a list for our clients, for example, not really leads yet, they're prospects, because we don't know if they're a lead yet because we don't know how qualified they are. We'll do everything we can to get a list that gets us close to being a qualified lead, but we don't know that until we actually start asking them some questions. And if somebody tells you that they're going to give you a list of totally qualified leads, run. It doesn't exist until you get in and dive in and start asking questions. Lead lists aren't always the goal that everybody thinks they are. The key magic is getting them from a prospect, getting somebody to call, talk to them, email, whatever it may be, you're contacting them, and you start getting rid of those who do not meet your qualifications. Then they become a lead. Once those are leads, those leads become appointments, then they become an opportunity. A lot of people think that just because you have a lead and you're going to go out, somebody set an appointment for you, hey, this is an opportunity, right? It's not really an opportunity until your salesperson goes out there, or if that's you or somebody on your staff, if they go out there and they start asking them questions and you find out, yeah, this is something they really do fit who we are. Now it's an opportunity. And then, of course, the client's going to take a little while to, you might have to earn their trust before they become a client. We'll talk about how long that takes here in a little bit. But again, the old days, 5 to 10 years ago. I mean, that's not that long, right? But that's the old days when it comes to technology. That's an eternity, right? But back then, you don't have nearly the competition that we do today. Many companies did in-house with really, we didn't really have the complexities that we have today. The MSP industry was really at the beginning stages of the growth. So it really wasn't that tough to get business. You could just hang a sign out front of a building on a busy street, and people might stop in and say, hey, I've got, a business, I got 25 computers and I'm kind of stuck, I don't know what to do. That stuff happened. And I know you know what I'm talking about. You guys, those of you who've been around for a while, you all went through that. So today, most prospects, they already have an MSP. Most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them do. And they're already in contracts. And they also, here's the thing that a lot of MSP owners and salespeople forget. They remember how much of a pain it was to set up a couple of years back. Or maybe they switched from somebody who really didn't know what they're doing to the current MSP. And they just remember there was a lot of work involved with that. And it costs some money too. So there's some pain involved with that. So you got to get through that somehow. So again, if you have any questions, I'm going really fast on this. I get it, but make sure you ask some questions, and we'll talk about it either now or at the end. Here's one of the things that I've really, it's a pet peeve of mine, because a lot of MSPs that I talk to, again, thought-provoking. I'm going to shock a few of you on here. Most of the MSPs that I talk to do not understand realistically what a sales cycle is all about. They believe that every appointment that is set, whether they do it in-house or an appointment setting firm, they believe that prospect, I'm going to call it a prospect because it's not qualified probably, but they should just automatically be ready to come aboard. And I got to tell you, that's not it. So here's some of the things that I hear when I have conversations while I'm qualifying MSPs, whether or not we want to work with them. We have our A, Bs, and Cs. We try and stay away from the Ds as well. But I hear things like, I only want to talk to prospects that have a need. I really hear that a lot. We'll talk about each one of these here deeper in just a second. I hear, I only want clients that are ready to make a switch. Otherwise, they're wasting my time. I hear things like, when I ask, how good are you at sales? Well, my close ratio is 80%. Oh, okay, that's cool. All I need is more people to see. We'll close them in 30 days. I actually do hear that stuff. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, it can happen. I've tracked my close ratios, and sometimes if I'm not seeing a lot of people, but they all are good, qualified people, yeah, my close ratio is 80%, 90%. I've had 100% in a month before. I didn't have very much activity though, but I closed every one of them. Does that mean I'm perfect? No, it just means I probably didn't have enough people to see. So let's get real about this. So let's talk. The first one, I only want to talk to prospects that have a need. Well, prospects rarely know if they have a need or not, and this is reality. You've heard the phrase, they don't know what they don't know. And that is so true, especially in the MSP industry. Your clients aren't techs normally. They're not techies. They do not understand what all it takes, to run a network. They don't know if there's any issues. As far as they're concerned, if it's not on fire, everything's okay. It is up to you to be able to not necessarily convince them, but educate them is maybe a better word. Okay, so here's another one. I only want clients that are ready to make a switch. Well, here's the reality. There is pain involved with switching. And why would a prospect want to switch to you if they don't even know who you are? They don't know if they like you or not. And they certainly don't trust you yet. So there is no way that you're going to bring a client in right now, unless referral's a different story because somebody's already told them about you. Okay, those are the ones that are ready to make a switch right away, and that's where this comment kind of stems from. When you're going into a sales system, and we're doing this to supplement the referrals, this is not normally the case. So your expectations have to be more realistic than that. So my close ratio is 80%. I kind of touched on this a little bit before. It could be. Referrals often are very high percentage closes. You get 2 referrals a month, yeah, you probably close them both. And that's why they came to you. They got a problem, somebody talked about you, and they're coming to you for help. Okay, you should have a high close ratio. But you cannot make the mistake to think that all prospects are going to be ready for you like those warm referrals. And that's a big mistake that I hear a lot of MSPs when I'm having conversations. Those don't tend to be very good clients for us, by the way, because they're not very realistic. Again, this is a reality check here. I think reality, and I know if you've ever gone through True Methods, for example, I think Gary Pica does an excellent job of getting metrics out there. But from our experience, it seems like 20–25%. That's excellent as far as a close rate for top MSPs with new prospects. I didn't say the warm referrals. I'm talking about the brand new prospects who don't know who you are. My warning is, don't plan your sales growth on an 80% close ratio, or you're never gonna reach your goals if you do that. And all I need is more people to see. We'll close them in 30 days. Again, watch out for quantity over quality. Use your client profile. That's why I spent so much time on it, to reach only those prospects who really could be a good fit. Those worth getting are probably going to take a little time. Emergency clients, they do close fast, but do you really want break-fix clients all the time? Are they profitable? Some say yes. I understand projects, and we do promote that. If there's a good project that fits, take the project, especially a larger client. It might be the way you get in the door to earn their trust and all that. So, and that's not a bad strategy. Some do that, some don't, but some do. Okay, on the sales cycle itself, again, we talked about this, so I'm going to go over this kind of briefly, but the inquiry phase, Again, this happens when inbound calls take place or web forms come in. The key thing there is to have questions to qualify them. So whoever's taking those calls, they have the questions to ask. So you know if they need to move into the next stage, or you politely thank them, sorry, we can't help you, that type of response. A prospect, maybe it takes 20 days to develop a list of prospects that on the surface they seem like they match. I put some times on here just to give you an idea. And again, these are estimates. Everybody's all over the board on this, okay? But I think to give you an idea, this is a sales cycle. Once a prospect really is qualified, it becomes a lead. And qualified might mean that you've touched base with them, you've actually talked with them, and it appears on the surface that they could potentially be a good fit. And you might have to take 30 days to get a qualified list. And of that qualified list, I'd say at this point, when they become an appointment, they may not be an opportunity yet. They may still be in the lead phase yet. Once you get out and meet with them, whether you do it face-to-face, initial phone call, we have clients that do both. You know, it might take you a week to kind of figure that out. By the time you set the appointment, go out, meet with them, a couple days to think about it. It could take a week, it could take longer to realize if they really are an opportunity or not. And the goal is not every single one you meet with is going to be an opportunity. You got to get rid of those who, again, if they're a D client potential, those are where you say, thank you very much, but I appreciate your time. Really enjoyed our meeting together, but I'm not sure I can help you. Disqualify them and move on. Don't waste your time. And then it could take 6 months before a client, sometimes clients could take a year or 2 years. Everybody's different, depends on their situation, depends on their contracts that they're in right now. There's a lot of factors. But the reason I put the time on here is because a lot of MSPs I talk with, again, they're under the impression that 30 days, I better have some sales in 30 days or your program isn't any good. Well, I'm never going to bring somebody in with with that mindset because it's not real. It's not reality. So understand this a little bit. And again, this could be a little bit on the fast side for some. We've had clients that, man, they do close right away. They hit the jackpot early. It happens. But in reality, I think if you ask most of our clients, they'd all tell you the same thing. It takes a few months to build up that pipeline. The true methods term of it is the warm 250. And then you got to make sure that you talk with them over time and stay in front of them. Don't ignore them. That's where your goal is. So again, 6 to 8 months to close an outbound client is, you know, kind of the norm. If it's a good quality client, that is. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the fourth thing on here that you can do to skyrocket your sales. And we're going to talk about the sales team, where some really have more of a lack of a sales team. It's all on their shoulders, the owner or the manager. Okay, so can you hire a salesperson to carry out all the function in sales? I get this question a lot. I just hired a sales guy, sales lady. Things are going to change. Well, hang on a second. Because if you put all the burden on one person, you know, to find a list, to qualify that list, to take the inbound calls, you know, by the time they get done everything else, they don't have any time to actually sell. That's a problem. If you can't close, you're not going to make any money. So we're going to talk about that just a little bit, and the differences and why I've noticed that the successful MSPs, they segment and they break away. They have people who are good at setting appointments, the inside sales, and then they have the salespeople who are very good at closing. When you combine all the functions into one person, it doesn't work real well, and here's why. Appointment setters. Okay, we have 70 of them in our office. I've seen it. I see them every day. They are really, really good at what they do. I'm glad they are because I couldn't do it. I'm not wired that way. But what are the characteristics? Well, first of all, they do have pretty good at communication skills. They really do. They're really good at it. They are persistent. They are like bulldogs, but they're professional about it. They love repetitive tasks. Well, think about it. If they're going to make 200 dials a day, And then they come back the next day and they do it again. And the next day they do it again. And we have people in our office who've been here 20 years doing this every day. And you know what? They actually enjoy it. God love them. I can't do it. They're organized. They really are. They keep track of their list. They keep track of their calls. They are task-oriented. They love tasks. Okay, so let's talk about now the sales people who focus on closing. So whoops, we don't want to look like that. Hang on a second. I think I got the wrong one in here. Oh, there we go. A sales closer characteristics. There you go, Amber, and I'm starting to stumble a little bit on my words. They tend to be very professional. Professional today does not mean they wear a suit, by the way. But they just handle themselves a different way than an appointment setter. If they went out to talk to somebody, they'd fumble around a lot. They're very, very good at building relationships. Okay, they focus on client needs. They like to speak in terms of value. They love variety. They love challenges, and the really successful ones seem to be very driven. So it really comes down to, again, can one person do both? Appointment setters, again, they prefer a stable inside environment, a repetitive task. They're going to be a little awkward if they went out and met an in-person on an in-person sales appointment. They feel pretty awkward about it. But man, can they pound out the number of dials a day? And the outside sales closes, again, we already talked about this. These are two totally separate skill sets, and not too many good things happen when you try and combine that. So here's my challenge for everybody listening today. If you already have this broken out, congratulations. I'm going to say you're in the top 10, 15% of MSPs out there. Yeah, that's awesome. Keep going. If you don't have anybody, and for those of you who are, maybe haven't been in business that long and you're trying to do all this on your own, man, it's tough. It really is tough. At some point, you're going to have to pull the trigger and decide to invest in your business and do your best to hire somebody that can actually close. If you're really good at closing, fine, but you got to have somebody set appointments for you. If you're not very good at sales, you've got to find somebody who is, and you need to get back in there to do your strengths. And again, here it is. We want to make sure that we work on the strengths for the appointment setters. We also want to make sure we work on the strengths of those outside sales closers. So it just doesn't work very well when you try and combine the two of them. Okay, so the last thing is leveraging your resources. And that is, when should you consider outsourcing to boost your sales process? And also, when should you not consider doing it? And, benefits of leverage, we hear this all the time. Leverage is great if used properly. If you abuse the leverage, you can get in trouble pretty quick, but you got to know what you're doing. It isn't always obvious to the benefits to everybody, but let's face it, there's two main ones. You can accomplish more with the time and energy and resources that you already have, and you can scale a lot faster. You really can be. You don't have to necessarily hire more people, and more people train and keep training and people quit. It's a slow, agonizing process sometimes. If you outsource with a really good partner, let them have the agony, but they've got a system. That's what they do for a living. They're probably going to be a lot better at it than you are. They do it several times a week. You have a tough time keeping up with that. So when should you not outsource? And I'd say that there are some people probably listening today that outsourcing maybe just doesn't make sense for you. That's okay. But when you have already separated your skill set of lead generation, the ISRs and your sales closers, everything's already working pretty well, and you're really achieving maximum growth right now. And you honestly have a passion for managing the process. You enjoy it. And it really doesn't interfere with the other important areas that your business needs you for, your strengths. Then don't outsource. If you enjoy it, go for it. I'm not going to try and convince you. But so when you're struggling with a sales executive finding enough qualified opportunities, you'll know if they're struggling because hey, you're always you're disappointed. Tense, your salesperson thinks he or she's going to get fired all the time. Okay, so there's just a lot of bad tension in the air. Your sales exec expending more than 20% of his or her time doing prospecting and lead generation and not building relationships and closing business, you might want to consider it. You simply can't find the right person to be making those calls, and the process is really just draining all your energy, your resources, taking time away from those areas that really are your strengths. If you feel this is you, then yeah, it's time. Maybe you should consider it. If you can't do it today, you should be working towards doing it at some point. So I'm going to wrap this up. If you do or are considering, or you have tried this in the past, many MSPs that we talk to, we're not the first dog and pony show they've listened to. They've done this before. They've outsourced. Most of them, I hear, it's not working real well. Okay, fine. That's why we got in the business. I hopefully we do things a little bit better. But here's some things that I would look for if it were me. First of all, do they specialize and understand the sales process of MSPs and technology in general? Or are they just set appointments for every industry they can come across? Do they have a system? I said a system, not do they say they do it, but ask them what their system is to qualify the leads and turn them into opportunities for your sales team. Or do they just give you an appointment, may probably charge you for it, and then say good luck? There's a lot of them out there like that, unfortunately. Do they help you and your sales staff with sales coaching and contribute ways to increase your closing ratio? That's an important part of it. We feel pretty strong about it anyhow. Do they offer short-term contracts? Or do they lock you into those long-term deals, those 6 to 12-month killers, and they charge you $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month, and you find out after 3, 4 months this is a huge mistake, but you're stuck. You can't get out of it. If they want to lock you in, that's just not a good sign. I would probably try and look elsewhere. Do they operate with exclusivity? Or do they simply bring in as many clients to work the same area as they possibly can? Ask them that. That is very, very important, because you do not want, why would you work for somebody who's going to be building up your competitor? They're going to be pitting you guys against each other. So that's in our world, we don't think that's real ethical, so we don't do that. Do they take the time to understand your business, or do they simply just give you a list and say, hey, these are qualified because you told us what you're looking for and we put in the criteria and SIC codes, here they are. And then they simply call those qualified. You're the only one who should be able to say it's qualified or not. And I know our system, we have feedback that we have everybody give back to us whether they're qualified or not. And if they're not qualified, we start asking questions, why not? What did we miss? And if you can't get an 85 to 90% qualified appointment ratio, then you're probably not with the right firm. So again, PT Services Group, just a little bit. So some people always ask me about this. So I'm not going to go into what all we do, how great we are on stuff, because who cares, right? Think of us as the MSP of internal sales and appointment setting. There you go. That's kind of what we do. We do the same role as you. Just we don't do we don't network companies, but we set up appointments so you can. So that's what we do. So again, if you have any questions, I know I covered so much today, and I appreciate you sticking around. We really went over a lot. Each one of these 5 key areas, we definitely could have had an entire webinar or even a half-day seminar on. I mean, these are pretty in detailed items here. But if you do have some questions, or if you're not sure, but you think maybe outsource appointment setting could be for you, but not sure, just send me an email, give me a call. Love to have a conversation with you. I'm not pushy. I'll do my best honest assessment as I can. And if you're not ready, or if it doesn't fit, I'll tell you, because I only want A prospects too. If you're not a good fit, then I'm not saying you can't be at some point, but we'll go over why and why not, what we need to work on, and I'll help you as much as I can. So thanks, everybody.